Okay, I hope it's visible. Okay, I'll just check whether HANA Cloud is up and running once again. Okay, yeah, it is. Okay, so yes, welcome everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining. Maybe I guess as we are discussing, we are on the verge of ending this year and maybe starting a new one. So maybe I guess we'll consider this as our last session in this year and maybe we'll continue in 2024 going forward. Okay, so let's go through a bit of a recap of what we did in the yesterday's session. So in the last session, what we did is we tried understanding few of the thing around the controller. Okay. So for example, if I just go over here, what we understood is that whenever we are having any sort of a field, which are also considered as a virtual field, how we can implement those, because these are not going to have any real database persistency. Okay, so in that case, what we can do is we can have some after and maybe we can perform a read operation. So during the read, ideally, we are planning to inject the data rather than at the time of, let's just say, creation. So the data is not really persisted, but rather calculated onto the runtime. Okay, that's what we did. Post which one more scenario we understood is that if we do have a standard operation, we know the standard entity is anyway going to take care of it. But how about the custom scenarios? As in, for example, if I do have custom actions, right? So in that case, what you can do is you can define an action. This is called entity bound action. You can define it in the action clause. For example, I am trying to create an action which will mark my assessment as a obsolete. So if I'm doing that, for example, I need some set of parameter, you can have n number of parameters likewise. Now, while specifying that, you might feel a need of doing the right implementation. So what I did is I just did srv.on name of that particular action, and then you can specify the handler. Now, either you could have gone with the particular inline handler, or rather I created a separate file for handling my actions. So I can say action handlers. And in order for me to connect, or I can say in order for this to be visible across my project, I just define it in the module.export. So it becomes public because in Node.js, the things are by default private. The moment you would like to specify that this particular function is something I'll need globally, you can define it as a module.exports. Okay. So we went ahead with a function which is going to implement my handler. It will receive the same parameter as that of your actual handler. We tried reading the set of data, post which we understood that there are multiple options. Either we can go ahead and update the DB directly by initializing the transaction and a few more things. On top of it, if you would like to create some sort of a database procedure, we can very well create it by just going into DB SRC, and then maybe here you can create any procedures within that SRC folder. I created a separate folder to segregate those things, saying these are procedures. Okay. Now in this procedure, I just kept the logic to minimal. I just imported few parameters. I am doing some DB operation, and my DB should be updated with a is obsolete equal to true, and the reason comment that was passed. Now, in order for my controller to pass the same to my, I can say, procedure, we have to call that procedure. For that, there are a couple of steps. Initialize the transaction, initialize the query. Ideally, a procedure is called using a call statement. So you can simply say call and this name. Wherever parameters are there, you can specify simply a question mark and you will be able to see this over here. Okay. And you will be able to pass those parameters. Many a time you might also be confused saying, hey, what all parameters I should be specifying, in what sequence I might doing a typo error or something. There is one more alternative to it. I can say for generating this particular query, that's the one that we used in my business application studio, which is over here. For example, if I just go over here, Okay, so for example, if I just simply go ahead and expand this one, I guess, what is it? I'll just go in procedures. As you can see, there is the same procedure, right? Because we deployed the version of it, so it's appearing over here. Now, if you click on this, you will see a procedure getting generated. Here you have got two options, generate call statement and generate call statement with UI. So this with UI option, whenever you do that, it allows you passing the parameters. Okay, so I'll just click on this. As you can see, you are getting a skeleton. This will be a schema ID. That's something you can omit, but these are the things that you can directly pass. You can simply pass this parameter structure, omitting any double inverted comma over here because we don't need it. But this becomes your structure. So there is the same thing that we would have passed in my business application studio while generating the query you see over here. Okay, so these are the same thing. Even if there are 50 odd parameters, you can simply generate those particular call statement. Call will be there. Replace this thing with your a normal procedure ID so that it's more readable because we don't need all this double inverted comma in the stuff, and this will work. Even if you are willing to try this out manually over here, what you can simply do is you can pass some data which you are willing to process. The moment you execute it from here, you will see it in the action. Okay. Irrespective of your controller, if you would like to check the validity, if you would like to check whether the procedure that you have written is working fine, you can go via this route. Okay. Post which, what we were also understanding is that if we have some sort of a textual data or record data like we have in assessment, it's okay for us to, I can say the best way to store it, it's in the HANA database. How about some media storage? So for example, someone is saying that for this assessment, I would like to store some sort of, let's just say, a supporting document, some sort of attachment. Okay. So for that, a normal entity won't work. Like in any other OData service terminology where we have a media entity, we will need a media entity over here as well. Okay, so what we can do is we can simply go over here and say entity. You can define any name over here, give anything that you would need. For example, I'll need a primary key ID. Tomorrow, let's just say if you would also need something that can control, or I can set, keep the uh, idea of like when this attachment and everything was created, updated, you can go with managed as well, managed aspect. On top of it, if I say my content needs to be stored, so you'll go with a large binary, which is going to create your blob content over here. You will define the type of a media that it is going to store. I can say Excel, zip, PDF, whatever kind of file you are going to upload. Plus the file name over here could be actual file name with which finally it will be downloaded, or I can say it would be disposed whenever you are supposed to pass it. Now, this small chunk of code along with its exposure as an entity is quite sufficient for you to handle the media operation without any sort of a custom code. The advantage is that with this 6 line of code, you will see that attachment is working, it's in action. The only disadvantage is that as a best practice, it's not suggestible to go with a media content storage onto the database. Okay, rather ideally you should be storing it somewhere where data, I can say the storage is not quite expensive. So for example, any third party media storage, some file storage environment which you would have purchased. Okay, so that would ultimately help you save the cost for your organization. Plus it would be pretty fast because data compression can also not be performed for this media entity. We also did a round of testing for this. So here maybe in this one, we should be able to find that when I tried, let's just say, uploading a entity, we found it goes via two set of calls. One, I can say I can create it and I can update the content because a database entry will be required in order for the media to be updated. The same thing can be done in a single step if you go a parameter called slug. The slug parameter ideally is going to get into your content disposition annotated property, which is called file name. And that's the reason you will see it, that it's being placed in the file name whenever you are looking at the real data that we placed somewhere over here, I guess. Let's see if we do have it over here. Yeah, here we have it at. And here we were able to see that. Okay. Okay, so because we have annotated it with the content disposition annotation, that's where the file name is finally being placed. Okay, but this is a way of enabling a media entity. The working flow of it same. The basics, if you try to reiterate, what you can do is you can simply think that all I need to do is I need to annotate my simple entity with a some sort of a media annotation plus working mechanism wise, it requires two calls handling. I can say one post, one put. Even if you go via a single call, internally it is generating two different backend calls. Okay. So this is something you should be quite clear about because this basics is something that you will need when we are going with a next set of topic, which we can call it as a uploading any media entity in a Azure storage cloud. Okay, because as I mentioned, as a best practice, it's never advisable to store this information onto your database. So what are the alternatives we have got? Okay, we have got some sort of a third-party cloud you can use where you can store those particular set of attachment. Okay, let me just give you a background of this. So for example, there are different kind of storage provider, isn't it? So for example, if I just say Google Sheets, let me just go here. Okay, so there are different kind of a storage provider. In this case, you can provide store any sort of information you would need. Okay, HANA is ideally suggestible to be used in case of some sort of a data or record. In case of some media content, we can go with, let's just say, currently you would be using some sort of a Google Drive, which might have got some API if you would like to upload some attachments over there. Another one which I mostly prefer in case of this corporate requirement is I can say Azure Storage Cloud. Okay. So the idea behind this is this Azure Storage Cloud will help you upload those things. I can say will give you a place where you can store those attachments. For example, I am saying I would like to have 1 TB of a storage so that during that particular year, I can upload any information, any files which are being uploaded into this particular space. All you need is a just a address point in order for you to identify where actually it is being stored. Okay. So in order for us to understand where it is being stored, there are different, let's just say, components of Azure Storage Cloud. Okay, so we have to understand Azure Storage Cloud a bit. So for example, if I am saying that I have got, let's just say, Azure Storage Cloud over here. Okay, what it would do is this Azure Storage Cloud will have some sort of a area, logical area. So simply consider that I have a assessments which I was doing. Now I can have different assessment. I can say one, two, three, right? Now in one assessment, someone has uploaded three attachments. In one, someone has uploaded two attachments, and in one, someone has uploaded, let's just say one. So in this case, there are different ways. Either you can simply go ahead and upload this attachment here, which will dump somewhere and you have to keep the address of it. Or for each of the assessment, you create a separate pool of the attachment. So for example, here I am creating, let's just say one pool over here. So I can say there is a whole storage cloud which can have different set of folders. So I can have, let's just say one folder over here, one folder over here. Okay. Likewise, you can have different folders over here where you are planning to upload all the attachment. So this particular folder that we are talking about are termed as a Azure storage containers. So in each container, you can upload different attachment. You can upload n number of attachments. Okay. And these attachments are ideally termed as a blob. So there will be an Azure storage cloud which will have a area where different containers can be created, and these containers can contain files. I can say those containers can contain attachments, and those are called as a blob. Okay, so we'll just consider it as a blob where all your files will be uploaded. In order for us to connect to this, right, it should have got something that we might need a subscription for, right? And that's where we have a specific thing called portal. So you can go with simple portal azure.com, which gives you a area where you can simply look for any subscription. So for example, you need some virtual machine service, you can look for it. If you need some Kubernetes service, you can look for it. If you need some storage account as well, you can go ahead and create that as well. Okay. So what you can do is you can simply go over here in the storage account and simply say create. It will allow you creating that particular storage account service. Now, this service is something that you can use going forward for your file storage. So, for example, here I am going and I'll plan to create one subscription over here, which will be linked to my account. So, like in BTP, here we also do have a trial concept. You can go with that one. And you can give a storage account name, the area, like we have a region in BTP. That's the same concept. You can choose the kind of one. I can just go with always with the standard because that's something which will almost cost you zero if you are using it for your learning perspective, for your learning purpose. Okay. So like I also did the same thing. I created one account over here, a style storage account. That's the one that I created already. After you edit those three things, so as I can say a name, which is style, location, West India, okay, subscription, standard, all these things after I have added, I can see my storage account is ready. Okay. Same way, if a corporate person is creating, they'll always go with a premium because the number of attachment and the access they'll need will be on higher side. Plus, thus, let's just say the data charges will also be always pay as you go. So for example, I am saying that I would like to view all those things. Those are stored over here, right? So I can simply say I can have some storage account which can contain some sort of a containers, and this container can again contain some different containers. Okay, so for example, I have got one container over here which can have different set of files. That's possible. Okay, so as we don't want any old one, I can just simply go ahead and delete this as well. You can manage this. That's totally fine. But what ideally would happen is that the moment you are saying you are in a storage account, you can have n number of container. I can create one container. Within a container, I can upload n number of media files. And this particular files that we'll have will be uploaded via SAP system. Okay. Now, in order for me to uniquely identify, so for example, I am saying that this is my assessment number one, which is having 3 attachments. Okay. So what I can consider is that I can have some attachment table, or I can say attachment links table, okay, which will contain the link for that attachment. What I'll contain is, what it will have is, it will have, let's just say, some sort of a attachment ID. Okay, this attachment ID can have some MIME type saying, okay, whether that's a Excel, or let's just say some sort of a PDF or image, or whatever it could be. Okay. Afterwards, rather than containing a regular content of it, it just contains the address for that Azure. So what a Azure address can be comprised of? Azure container ID, because we'll need a container ID for that. Plus, it will also have your Azure file ID, or I can say Azure blob ID, right? Blob is nothing but your file in terms of Azure. So if rather than storing an actual attachment, I can store this one, and this two things over here brings or contains an address using which I can reach out to my file over here, then I'll be able to upload my attachment, but store it in a place which is kind of much cheaper and much easy to maintain compared to that of the HANA database. Okay, that's what we are planning to do. Okay, now the question remains saying, if I am planning to do all this thing, okay, if I'm planning to do all this thing, I have to find a way to connect, or I can say communicate from my SAP system to my Azure storage, let's just say account. Yeah, one thing is sure, this Azure storage account will need some containers and we'll need some blob as well. We'll see how we can do that, how we can create that. Okay. Before that, for this communication to be established, okay, there should be some secure communication so that no one unauthorized can view my attachment, because there can be some sensitive documents and no one should be able to manipulate or upload their own as well. Okay. So that particular security is given by one concept called SAS, shared access signature. Okay, on top of it, if I say this one of the capability which Azure is providing, right? Maybe Microsoft Azure is providing us this capability, but someone would have developed it, isn't it? So someone would have developed some sort of, let's just say, API, some classes, some methods. They'll say, if you send me this, I'll upload it in my place, whichever you request for. So there should be some APIs as well. So we'll need two things for SAP to communicate with this Azure storage account. First thing we'll need is a secured access signature, which is nothing but a secure URL which contain security access for this account. Okay, which contains security access for this account and the address for this specific account. This is what we'll need. So we'll see how we can create a secured access, I can say shared access signature. Another thing that we'll need over here is, if some developer has already developed this, I don't know, right, how they are going to store it. They would have exposed something saying, hey, if you would like to upload, call this upload method. If you would like to download, call this download method. They would have written their own set of sweet logic within this upload and download. Okay. Those things are given in the form of open source APIs, open source packages. Okay. And these open source packages are something that we are supposed to we are supposed to consume and study and use it. Okay. Now this is going to be the story for any of the packages that you consume within SAP CAP. Okay. So the idea is you are working on a CAP which is nothing but a combination of CDS plus Node.js. Node.js comes up with a different kind of capability thanks to the open source packages which are generated on NPM layer. So I can say NPM packages which are available as an open source. This is the place where you will find all the packages that you will need. Whichever package that you need in order for your communication to be established, you have to use that, add it as a dependency in your project, and then use its underlying API methods to perform your operations. Okay. For example, for this Azure storage that we are talking about, there is one, let's just say package. So for example, I'll just simply say Azure storage NPM package. Okay, so it just suggested me Azure Storage blob. As we are going with a blob content, I can say Azure Storage blob. I can simply open this. And as you can see, it says Azure Storage blob library for JavaScript. Okay. It gives me different options. I can simply go over here and it gives me a way where using shared access signature, I can perform some operation, how the authentication can be done. Okay, after doing this, if you would like to upload some sort of a content, you can say how I can create a new container via my code. This is all code based. Okay, via your code, if you would like to perform something that you are doing over here manually, how you can do that. If you would like to view all the containers that has been created till date, how you can do that. If you would like to upload a content, a blob, how you can do that as well. These are given as a kind of a API documentation. So consider you are a developer who is developing something which is going to be reusable. You will expose it as an open source API. Plus you will give a documentation saying this is how you can access my API if you would like to. Okay. And there's the same sort of documentation we are also having over here. So this is the one that we are going to consume. Okay. Now, first thing, step number one. As we can see, we have a step number two, where we'll need the packages. Okay, we'll consider, I can say some sort of an NPM package, we'll use it. Before that, let's just say this shared access signature we'll need, right? So how we can get that? So if you just go over here, you will find a shared access signature button. Here you will see that, okay, what all things you are supposed to work upon. So for example, I can go with container, but let's just get a broad control. So I'm just getting service and object. Okay, that's not an issue. You can have a blob, file, queue, table. You can work with everything within using this particular container. I would like to create a, let's just say, access signature, which may be valid for certain duration. Now, each organization tries to create some sort of a signature which is valid for so and so time duration because of the security constraint. Ideally, organization create it for 6 months, a year, after which they'll revisit the security aspects of it. Okay, what we'll do is rather we'll create it, let's just say for a month. I'll just simply say, for example, 24th of Jan, and maybe I am creating this. So in order for me to have this, let's just say up and running, I'll just go by this 00. So that if there are some time differences, I don't get stopped. Okay. After that, you would see that I can go by some sort of all-out protocol. So I go with HTTP and HTTPS because I would like anyway this to get generated. So I'll just simply say whether you would like to generate some key. There are different ways. I'll just generate a basic key because that's what is available in my trial account. I'll just generate SAS and connection string. You will get a set of connection strings like this. These are the things that you will need in order for you to connect to those particular containers as a security. Okay, it has got some specific controls. So you would need this. I'll just simply copy these things and maybe we'll keep it. So going forward, I can use it whenever needed. Okay, let's see. This is token. I'll keep all of them. Let's see which one we'll need in order for us to work with that. Okay, so we have got this. Afterwards, if I say there are different ways, either I can go over here in this containers and you can keep a watch on like if there are any new containers which I am creating via my code, whether they are getting created or not. Okay. Another option is if you would like, you can simply download this software like I have Azure Storage Explorer. So like you have a database explorer, same way there is a storage explorer. You can go over here and connect your storage account. So within this storage account, you would be able to, let's just say view those things. There is nothing but a Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer, which is available free of cost. You can download it simply. Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer download. As you can see, you would find it over here, Azure Storage Explorer, and you will download it, and it's available for all those systems. Okay, so I'm not promoting Microsoft. I'm just saying for the use case that we need in order for us to easily understand this is how we can use it. I'll just simply right click over here and I can connect to my Azure storage account. So it might ask for different kind of a thing. I'll just simply say what all things I do have. So I'll say I have a storage account. Okay, I'll just click on this. What all things you have? Says, do you have let's just say, have you got a key or SAS? We have got that. Have you got a connection string? Yeah, we have got that, right? So I'll just copy this one and I'll just minimize this and I can pass any of this. So either of the way you can just connect over here. I'll just go next. I'll just pass this. It generates a name. Okay. I'll just simply say my storage account is Jan 23, 24. Okay. Let's just go next, and you will be able to connect to this. It creates the same as let's just say view over here, using which you will be able to easily view the things which are available online over here. So rather than going always over here, you can simply view the things from here as well. Whatever containers and files and everything are available, the same will be visible over here in this containers as well. So our ultimate target is that via our CAP service, there is a place where we should be able to create the containers. This from the Azure side. Okay. Now let's just go over here and understand. I'll just go over here and simply say, I would like to create a CAP project using which I can do that. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create a simple CAP project which will be new, and that's the one that we'll be using for our purpose. Okay, let me just simply create a project. Meanwhile, if anyone is having any doubt, maybe you can speak up. Maybe we can discuss.
Sumit, I have one doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
please.
in so in SAP Wi-Fi in file uploader,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if we want to
Mm-hmm.
upload something, so we can restrict their like file type.
Right.
So according to like file uploader, we can give here also like everything like file size, file type, and like everything.
You can, yeah, you can store all those things whichever are being received. So like you would have seen, the media type is something that we are anyway using over here, right? We need that in order for us to store. So from
Mhm.
backend side, what you can do is you can store those information which you are receiving from the UI. Restrictions things is something that you can keep from the UI side. Backend will contain those information. You can store the file size, MIME type, and everything that you are going to pass from the UI. We can receive all those things. Bare minimum thing will be the three of them in order for us to easily identify a file, file name, the type of it, and the actual storage content of it. These are the
So
things.
okay, so Sumit, in like EY only we can restrict, right? Like just like in SAP Wi-Fi we are using file uploader. Okay, okay.
So, so
So in
you are
like
talking
in
about the
CAPM, what
file
we will
type.
use?
So
Yeah. So
CAP is okay. Yeah,
Mhm.
understand this. CAP is not a UI generator. CAP is a
Mhm.
backend service generator, right? So in
Right.
CAPM, we don't need anything for us to restrict the kind of file that we are going to support. Yeah, there is a way using which in on the annotation level you can simply specify that I can expect only Excel kind of a file. That's doable. But even if you do that, I can say on UI side, on the there are no controls, right? Because there is a service. Service does not have control. It only has the endpoints, right? So
Mhm.
even if I do that, if you are, let's just say, going to consume that service on your UI and you are going to bind it with the file controller, your file controller will still show all the particular kind of a file type till the time you don't restrict it from the UI side, right?
Right. Right.
So your question is, what are we using on CAP side? Like we have a file controller, we don't use anything. It's just an endpoint. All we can do is, let's just say, a backend developer who is doing a gateway service development or a CDS, what
Mhm.
they can do
Okay.
is
Okay.
they can generate
Okay.
an endpoint, test out, and then pass it on to UI developer who is going to consume it. Simple, right?
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll create a project which we'll be using for BTPB Azure, for example. So we created this project and now we will use it. So let me just try to make the life a bit easier. I'll simply open this folder rather, so it's easy for us to manage. Okay, there's the one. Okay, it will just reload my space with just that folder, because I mean the number of projects are increasing into the space, so it's easy for us to focus on the one that we are working on. Okay, now, so we have this open. Now what we'll need is, we would like to connect all this thing. The first thing we will need is a kind of an entity. That's something we are going to create. I've kept the terminal open for the things that we need. I'll just create a new file. Let's just call again it as a nothing but a data model. Okay. And we'll, let's just say, name it as a, for example, btp.azure. Okay. And maybe we would need some aspects. So I'll just add those aspects from common. I'll just say CUID managed Okay. And let's just say I would like to create some sort of a entity to store my relation of attachments with Azure, right? So I can create some table, as I mentioned, which will store the relation, saying if there is an attachment that you are uploading, that with this attachment has been stored onto the Azure with along with this container ID and file ID. Let's just keep it like that. I'll just simply say attachments, for example, right? Maybe let's just say CUID managed. Um, I'll just simply say name over here, and maybe let's just say my name can be anything of, let's just say 255 characters. Let's just say the kind of file it's going to upload. For example, I'll simply say it can be any sort of a Excel, PDF, or anything. I'll just also set it as a MIME type 255. The Azure storage, a container it can have, because I would also need a container within which my file is going to get uploaded within Azure. So I'll just keep the container ID and file ID, because using that combination, I can simply recognize my files. I'll just simply say Azure file ID, and here I'll just simply say string 255. And yeah, I guess that's all for now. We don't need much properties, but if needed, maybe we'll use. Now, as you can see, we created this entity, which is simplest one, which does not have any media options. Because if we add a media option over here, then we'll need a content, which is a binary, which will create again a binary content onto table. But we don't want that. Rather, we want that we'll receive a binary content, we'll pass it on, and you will upload the data, the binary content onto storage rather than onto the DB. Okay. It means we need a skeleton. We don't need a persistence. What do we have for that? We do have CDS persistence skip. So we'll simply say that we just need a skeleton. We do not need a persistence layer where those content can be stored. Okay, so we'll just simply say, let's just create some intermediate entity. So for example, I'll just simply say I have attachments. Let's just create some internal entity. I'm naming it as an internal. You can name it as anything. Now, in this int, I might have some sort of a way to uniquely identify my attachments. I'll just simply say string 36. On top of it, for example, you might need some content over here, which will be passed, because this is the entity on which all your create, update, or I can say all your upload, download operations will be performed. This entity is going to be playing a role where your relation will be stored, but this is not going to play a front role for your application. This is going to play a front role for your application, which will be responsible for upload and download, which does not have any database persistency. So it doesn't matter whatever you write over here, it's not going to create a database table with this. The table will be with the skeleton. Okay, so I'll just simply say content, and let's just say large binary over here. Okay, and another one maybe we would need is a MIME type. Okay, and maybe we'll simply say string, and let's just say I would also need some file name. Okay, now what all things we would need in order for me to decide, or I can say define that these are media entity. Let's just say these are core dot media type. And here, what are the things that we can map to media type? I can say MIME type is the property this time. Another one is let's just say core dot is media type. That's something we have to mark it as a true, so that the system knows that yeah, there is a media type actually, and maybe how the content is going to get disposed. These are the bare minimum thing. Content disposition, and maybe we are going to say file name, and here I'm just saying file name. Okay. There is one more annotation you would see sometime, that this content can also be marked in a way so that we know that these are stream kind of a data. You would see many a time also this is being used. It does not have much impact, but your content are flagged as a stream data. Okay. Now I have used this. After that, what you will need is you would need some sort of an endpoint onto which we will perform an operation. Okay, so let me just keep the eyes open by using a CDS watch. Okay, now we'll need some sort of a service. So as we are going to perform some operation, I'll just simply say Azure service.cds. Okay, I'll just simply say using btp.azure as BA from parent folder and say Azure file service will say this particular entity, that's something we are going to expose over here. We'll call it as a attachments, for example. Okay, which is nothing but going to be a entity which maximum I can use just to get the attachment list, right? Because here it cannot give me the actual data. I'll just say attachment list. It contains the list of attachment that has been uploaded till date. I'll just say select from my BA dot attachments. Okay, other than that, maybe the internal entity we created, I'll just simply name it as this one attachments int. Attachments int, for example, as select from BA dot this one. So we created a attachments instance as well. This is something which is having a database persistency on top of it. This does not. Okay. Now, another one is maybe we have to now enrich this thing with a controller part as well. So this time, let's just not go with something which is having a different name. Rather, let's just go with something which is having the same name. So I'll just try to copy this name and I'll just create one file which is having a .js extension. So now I see that, okay, it's saying implementation has been done in this one. As simple as that. I did not wrote IMPL annotation, but as the names are same, I can get those things. Okay. Now I'll just define a skeleton for my, let's just say controller. I'll just say require CDS. We have already done that earlier. Module.exports. Okay. And here I'll just simply say cds.service.impl. Here I'll just simply say SRV. Okay, so we have got this thing which says this is going to play a role of my service implementation over here. Okay, now after having this, my purpose is that whenever someone says I would like to upload an attachment, I would like to allow that. Whenever someone says I would like to download an attachment, I would like to allow that. And whenever someone says delete an attachment, I would also like to allow that. Okay, now let's just think from a backend call perspective because we have to do the implementation for that particular relevant backend call, right? I'll simply say if someone is saying that I would like to upload an attachment. You remember when we were doing that media attachment, or I can say media entity thing, we found that for us to upload an attachment, it requires two backend calls, one post call, one put call, correct? So if I'm supposed to create a handler which can help me with the upload, download, or anything, the upload mechanism is always associated with a post and put call. If someone says I would like to download it, it means that's a call which is associated with a get call of an entity. And if someone is saying I would like to delete it, it means the delete HTTP call is associated over here, right? So we have to create a relevant handler which will handle two calls over here. In case of host post and put, a single handler will be triggered. In case of get something and in case of delete, something will get triggered. That's the idea. That's something we should be doing. Okay. Now, in order for us to make the things even more clear, more readable, let's just try to create one more file over here, which is going to handle all this upload download. We'll just modularize the thing as we were discussing in the last session, how we can make the things more readable. Okay, so I'll just simply say Azure, let's just say attachment handler. And I'll just simply say JS. Okay. And here what I'll do is I'll create certain files, or I can say certain, um, let's just say functions which we'll be using. So for example, I would need something which will help me with the upload of that. So I'll just simply say upload attachment. Okay, and here I'll just create a function which will be responsible for that. This for upload. Same way I might need something for download. I'll just simply say module.export download attachment. So the custom handler implementation, the one which we learned in the last session, that's the one that we are using right now, saying how I can have a function, I can create those and how I can make those public as well. So that's the concept that we are using over here. And at the same point in time, as we are spending more time into CAP, we are trying to make the things more neat and clean. Okay. So I got this. Now afterwards, I have to use these methods, these functions, I can say, for our operation. So I would need a connect for this. How can I do that? I can simply create a handle for this. So for example, I'll just simply say LO attachment handler. Okay, and I'll just simply say I would need something, but where I can get it from. So I'll just simply say you can get it from your current folder, Azure attachment handler. Here we have all the functions already defined, even though they are empty, but we do have placeholder which is responsible, or I can say which is going to be responsible for attachment upload operation. Now, I would like to upload an attachment in Azure. I would need a handler which can handle my post and put call. Post and put call are going to be triggered on this entity. I hope these hints are sufficient for us to define an handler, right? So I'll just simply say that SRV dot on, okay, and here which operation I'm talking about? A post and the put. So if I have more than one operation, I can simply say in round bracket, sorry, in the square bracket, I can simply say I would like to perform some create operation and update operation both if either of the call I am getting for which entity. So I'll just simply say for this entity over here, then I would like to do the attachment upload. I'll just simply say upload an attachment. So going forward, whenever you receive a post or put call on this entity, which are ideally responsible for your attachment upload, you would simply see this particular handler getting triggered. Okay, now same way we can implement something for download as well. Okay, so I'll just simply say srv.on, but this time it is a read one because the read is nothing but a get. Okay, and we'll just simply pass this over here. Okay, I'll just simply say download attachment. And again, the last one for the deleting an attachment from the storage. Okay, I'll just simply say delete. Whenever you receive a delete call, there is the placeholder. There is the person you can reach out to. I can say delete attachment. So a nice, neat and clean service implementation saying these are the operation which I'm redirecting to this one. Same way, if you have 1000 endpoint, you will just see an index, a kind of an entry point for this. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, what we got is that for us to perform any operation, we would need a shared access signature we downloaded. We'll use it whenever needed. But in order for those APIs also to be consumed, we would need some package over here, right? So let's just get this package over here, Azure Storage Blob. If you would like, you can simply click on this icon over here, which will copy this installation command from here. Okay, and let's just try to close this terminal, clear this out, and try to install this dependency. Okay, so we have got a dependency in the package.json, which is responsible for my Azure storage blob. Okay, now let's just try to make the things ready so that they can be used for my further operation. Okay, so I'll simply try to make the things ready whichever are needed because we don't want to go with in memory because the moment we say our operation is done, we might lose the control of it. Rather, what we might need is we might need a things that can be stored onto my DB. Okay, so I'll simply say BTP BE Azure over here, and here maybe we would like to add the HANA dependency to it. So I'll just simply say CDS add HANA. Maybe let's just say npm install at the rate SAP HANA client. Okay, and maybe we'll also install HANA DB. Okay, and what else we do have? Maybe we'll just add few things from the security perspective. So tomorrow, whenever we need, we have that. And maybe the last one, SAP Access Security. Okay, so we have got the package mostly that we need, at least for now. Maybe going forward, we might need more. We'll add that as well. Okay, other than that, maybe we would need the components also to be generated. So we have a running HANA instance on which we can do those operations. So I'll just simply, let's just say, try to do the login first. Okay, and let's just generate those components. Those are available for my operation. So I have got a HANA DB persistency. Okay, so I think this is going to get generated soon. Afterwards, what we might also need is some sort of a backend call so that we can perform my OData operation using which an attachment can be uploaded. I guess we have did that earlier already, I guess in the last session. Same way we'll do it right now as well. Okay.
Sumit,
Yeah, please.
uh, yes, sorry to interrupt. Like
Yeah,
it
no
is
worries.
like saying, please be patient. So, Sumit, suppose that I have a scenario. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Uh, okay. In a table. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose that five column, and in the sixth column, I have a
Mm-hmm.
requirement like file uploader for each row.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In CAPM. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we will create according to like DB. In DB table, we will create like a five column, okay, and in the six
Mm-hmm.
column. So according to this, also we need to create for file uploader also, same as right.
Right. So there are two aspects to it. Okay. First, when I say I have got some database table which contains my actual data,
Mm-hmm,
there is a way saying either you can create a look. The first idea is you should always push your data which is relevant to normal data into the HANA database. The one which is relevant to
mm-hmm,
Azure, you should ideally put it into Azure. So if I am saying that your uh, some of the record are going to have some attachment reference, I'll simply say just create a database table with a actual record, create a another table which contains attachment. And there is one concept that we are going to learn maybe in the week that follows is an
mm-hmm,
association. What you can do is there will be an attachment table, there will be a data table, you will associate both of them. So in the single backend call, you will get the data of all, but as your attachment is a separate business entity, right? You will store it in the separate entity, the relation of it, which is going to be this Azure storage. Okay. As a best practice. Okay. So one aspect to it could be that either you have a, let's just say a data entity. For example, I'll just call it as a entity data. And another one, I can have an entity attachment. And
Okay, so we need to create two entity, right?
exactly, yeah. So that's as per the
Yeah.
best
So
practice. I am saying both the ways it
mhm.
can be done. There is a best practice,
Yeah.
what ideally is suggested. Another way can be that you can go with entity data. Okay, that's over here. After your
Mhm.
data has been uploaded, you can write some handler. So for example, if I say my entity data has been uploaded in the create after of it, okay, in the create after handler, you know srv.after we have already used it. There you
Mhm.
can upload your actual attachment, and there you can also write some code to upload your DB. Update your DB with that particular record for Azure container and file ID. This is also one of the way that single entity can contain the data. In that particular case, you won't have anything with a CDS persistent script. Rather, your entity data will be there, which will contain all your data. If that's centralized, as in if it's a central DB, you can have CDS persistent exist. But at end of the day, it will have database storage. If you're going by that route, you have to go by create and then SRV dot after. This is a way. Best practice says you should have two entities with the separate data. So the data is stored in a relevant tables. Okay, and you will
Okay.
associate one with the another via means of attachment. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So Sumit, suppose that I have like customer ID, customer name, okay, and customer file, okay, in a table, three column, okay. So I will create one entity set like customer ID, customer name, and inside that we can create one like file upload type
What you
key
can do
in
is,
table
look, yeah, what you will have is customer ID, customer name, and there will be a
and
attachment reference, right?
attachment. Yes, yes,
So there will be attachment reference. So what will happen is,
yeah.
so I'll simply say
Mhm.
that, for example, just for you to understand, this can be an entity which contains some data entity. Okay. And here you have a column one, which will be
Yeah,
some sort of a string. Okay. And
string
after
okay.
this, for example, you have got some ID of it. I'll just simply say CUID.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
Hmm.
what you will have is you will have some attachments. Okay,
Yes,
and
yes.
this is the one that we are going to learn next. You will simply say associated to one or
Okay.
many, depending on how many attachment it can have, and you will just give the name
Okay.
of it. So what it will do is the moment you generate an entity, the moment you generate, let's just say OData service, you will see that this some data has got two property. Column one
Two
plus it would
properties
have
and
got
attachments.
attachments is not going to an property. Attachments will have a property called attachments underscore the key of it. So the ID that will get generated will be attachments ID, attachments underscore ID. This is a property that will get generated. What it will contain? Automatically, it will contain the primary key of this table. So always you will have a table which will contain a reference to your attachments primary key over here. So using this key, you can individually identify which are that particular attachment which is relevant to this. Provided you have a case of one attachment for record. If you have a case of multiple record, you can simply say attachments over here, it can be anything, association to many, and then you can
Many.
specify that this particular attachments, let's just say ID over here is matching with ID of this. So in that case, what you can do is vice versa, the ID of this, the primary key of this, you will ultimately add over here. I'll just say some data over here, association to one, and then you will add a, let's just say some data. Okay. So
Someday.
what it would create is it will add this particular data ID over here. So for each of the attachment, it will say, hey, this is an attachment. I have 50 attachment, but this attachment is relevant to this data. This attachment is relevant to this data. Likewise, this linkage will be available. So your data will
Mhm.
be two, but while you are
Mhm.
querying it, right? You know, REST API ideally allows you querying using association and navigations. So using your navigation, this will become your navigation in either of the case. You can simply say some data question mark dollar expand, and the moment you write this in the same OData output, you will get all this data in a single call. But technically, modularization wise, they are being stored into two different tables.
Okay. And whatever you are writing for attachment, all like for get, for create, everything. So we will write same as, right?
So if you are writing, or I can say if you are creating two different entity, you will follow the same approach which I am doing. If you're going by just a
Okay.
single entity like you just mentioned earlier, then you have to go by SRV after, which is not a clean way. That's a dirty way of doing it. We
Yes, yes,
don't do
yes,
that.
yes, yes.
Okay.
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 So. Okay.
We are going to have a concept of attachment. Sorry, we are going to have a concept of association and with a concept of association to one and many. We are going to learn this maybe. Don't worry. There we'll have a relation between multiple tables. We'll see how the modularization can be done, but still on output on the OData out front, you will have both the data being served in the single call.
Okay. So like a dollar set one to many, we can use in like master detail application also, right? So
Master detail application is one of the example, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
No worries. Yeah. Thanks. Because these are the things which are already available in one or another OData technology. So these also one way of generating OData. So how we can do that in a CAP? Definitely, that's a genuine question. That's a good thing. Okay, no worries. Okay, so I have got this attachments. I have deployed this to a Cloud Foundry. Let's just try to connect to this one as well, so we can use it going forward for my connection. I'll just simply create a configuration for my Azure project. Okay, let's just try to bind to HANA. This Azure DB instance we just created. With this style, there is some issue, I'm not sure, but very first time you try binding it, 99% of the cases it fails. For the second time when you do it, it works. So can't help it.
Yes, this is no, yeah.
It's
First
a
time it will
common,
show error.
exactly. Yeah, first time it will fail. Next time you try binding it, it works. So
Yeah,
there
it
is an issue
works.
with trial because in my real account, I never faced this issue.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so it has found it. Now we can proceed with the operation that follows. So we have got this particular things working, and let's just try to view the metadata ones, CDS watch, profile, hybrid. Okay, so it has connected to my DB. I see those things also available. Okay, and I will have some metadata as well. So definitely this Azure implementation, it's not going to get over maybe in this one session, definitely, because it's consuming those API upload, download. So definitely it might take more than one session, but that's fine. Okay, so now I have this one. I have added the things those I need. Now, another thing we would need is some sort of a way using which I can actually do the testing of whether my attachments and everything is going to get uploaded correctly, right? So let's just create a required folder over here. Okay, maybe it's not the right place.
If you drag it to bottom, I think so it will work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to. At least, I mean, the place at which I am doing it will anyway allow me doing the test at HTTP, but
Yes.
point is that won't be much clean.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, I'll just go by saying I would like to load the metadata first. And another thing we'll need is we'll just need some taste data so we can try out those things and start with the actual implementation. Plus the last option we would need is a OData V2 proxy as well. So I can go in a scenario where if double calls are getting triggered in a single run, how those are handled. That's also one of the operation we can just try using. Okay, where it is here. Okay, and the last thing we would need is a server file. Okay, so now we have got an option of having two things working at the same point in time, and I'll just simply say CDS watch profile hybrid. Okay, so I'll just simply say I would like to get something in the form of this one, which is nothing but this one. Let me just call this. What is the endpoint? It says there is an endpoint. It has, okay, and it has got some dollar metadata. So we have got the metadata and we would need it in the V2 format. This is V4. Let's just add a V2 over here. Okay. Now, another thing we would need is I would like to upload an attachment. But this time, this attachment should be uploaded into a Azure one. Okay, so in order for us to upload an attachment like we did it in the last session, let me just try to have something uploaded over here. I'll just upload a file onto my desktop, which is this one. Okay, and now let's just try to go with some sort of a post operation over here. We'll just simply go over here, copy this. The operation that we'll be performing will always be in this one because there is a media entity, right? The last one is a media entity. We have exposed it with this name. Okay. This time we have to pass some sort of a slug parameter as well, whatever name I would like to upload it with. So for example, I'll just simply say my taste pdf.pdf, for example, and content type over here. Application .pdf it will be. And we would need a path for this. So I'll just simply say it's nothing but a SRV and the name of the file is taste1.pdf. Okay, so we have got this thing. Now we have to see how the things are working. Initially, if you try doing this, you might start getting some error. As you can see, it says the ID is not found and all these things. So we have to now implement these things one by one. Okay, let's just do that. I'll simply first try to observe the things that I'm getting. Okay, first thing that I would get is a create call and an update call. Okay, I have to figure out a way to understand whether that's a create call or an update call. I'll put a breakpoint over here, go in the run and debug, and go over here and I'll try to execute this. I mean, ideally, I prefer coding in a developer's way. So I usually look at the things that I get in the input and then maybe start with the execution. So at least we are clear on what the things which are going into background. Okay, I'll just simply say, okay, maybe take some time. Okay, let's just do this. Remove this T, add T. Yeah, now it did, and now it did. Let me just say post. We are getting a call over here, right? So what is that call that we just got over here? It says you are trying to perform a create operation. You see, you are getting a call of a create over here. So I can simply say copy as an expression and I can have a scenario saying whether I'm getting a create call or I am getting an update call. Because in both the cases, we are going to perform a different operation, isn't it? What are those operations? When I'm getting a create call, ideally I create an entry into the DB. If whenever I'm getting an update call, I ideally upload that particular set of data into my Azure storage. That's how we did in the last standard operations as well, right? On top of it, you are getting some data. It says request.data over here can give you the MIME type, which is a application PDF. We never passed the file name directly, but we passed it in the slug. That's the reason you are getting it in the my PDF over here. Okay, so you are ultimately getting those things over here, which says that, okay, your data can be derived from here. Okay, that's one. Another thing maybe which you would need is an entry that you will create over here. Nothing more than that. So what I'll do is I'll just simply write some code saying if the code that I'm writing over here, it says if this is, let's just say, like we have a create. So for example, if there is update, then I would need this code block to get executed. Else if my req.event is equal to create, then I would like this code to get executed. So I'm just segregating two of the calls in a way that I can do the required operation. So what I'll do in this particular case, during the creation, I'll push the entry into the DB, okay, without reference to Azure. And in case of an update, what I'll do is I'll do the actual upload of data into what? Actual upload of data into my, let's just say Azure. Why is that the case? Why can't I do the same thing into create? I could have done the upload over here in the create as well, right? But as you can see, the data that we are receiving, we are just receiving textual data in the create call. Correct? We just received textual data. We never received the media content over here. Till the time we don't have a media content, what will I upload? Correct. So that's the reason we'll never be able to perform my, let's just say, this operation that we would need in the particular create call. Okay. Now, let's just do this. I'll say, if even if I try executing this right now, maybe definitely it's going to fail with the same error because the create is expected to return the key that it would have created. Here, I don't have a key available because I never generated a key of it, which is going to be the key of this one, which is an ID. So if I can return an ID, I can expect then something to happen. I can expect then that my update call might also start getting triggered. Okay, so I might need some generation of a ID, a unique ID. So maybe there is also one package for that called UUID. You might find that over here as well. I'll just simply say UUID. You have this package, okay, and it helps you generate different form of a ID, some sort of a V1 and all, which is dependent on timestamp. So let's just go with the simplest one. I'll just go over here. I'll just simply say npm install UUID. Okay, and I would like to write something so that my ID gets generated. So I'll just simply say, hey, I would like to generate a ID. Before that, let's just try to connect to my UUID over here, require, and we have a UUID. And this UUID over here should give us the dynamic ID. So for example, I'll just simply say LV dynamic ID. Okay. And this dynamic ID we would generate via UUID. We have got all this operation. As you can see, it's trying to load it via its API. The methods in the blue are the method which are available from that package. So I'll just simply say V1 and I can expect that it will generate some ID. Now, this is the ID that I can plan returning. Yeah, we have to push the data into the database. But before that, let's see if the things are working out, right? So what I'll do is I'll just simply try to push the data into that request.data. I'll just say add ID into request.data and return so that my create call is responding back with the bare minimum thing it has to, which is nothing but your ID parameter, which is nothing but your primary key parameter. I'll just simply say ID. Why I am saying ID? Because as you can see, there is an entity on which a create call is getting triggered. Ideally, a create call should create a record. If it is creating a record, it should have some primary key generated, and that generated ID we are supposed to return. Till the time you don't return, your create call is failing, right? So that's the reason we are just responding back with it. We are just behaving as if the something got generated, but never nothing did. Okay. So I'll just simply say req.data. I'm returning whole set of data along with the ID. Okay. Now let's just try to put a let's just say breakpoint here. Okay. And let's just try to run this again. Okay, so okay, this seems to be up, but see, yeah, now I see this button clickable. I'll just click on this. What is the call we are getting? It says there is a create call. Okay, I'll just go over here. It goes into create. It generated some ID, LV dynamic ID. You see, this is the one, and this is the one that it is passing into req.data. So now we see req.data just got one more thing because the one which we pushed also become part of it. I'll just execute this. And now we got again one more call, isn't it, into this. And this time, let's just see req.event. This time it is update, right? So there is an update call. And this time, if you see in the data, you are having a content. This content is your media content. Now, once you have the media content, then you can proceed with the upload of it to the Azure storage. Okay. So that's the reason we'll proceed towards the upload in the update call and not in the create, because we won't be able to. We don't have the content on our hand, right? We don't have the content available. Along with that, we have got ID and MIME type. We can proceed with this as well. Okay. So let's just complete the activity over here. We have got the ID, but we have never pushed an entry into the DB. We'll need this entry into the DB, which says that, okay, this ID is there. I'll try to insert the record into this because we have got the name, we have got the MIME type, we have got file name, we have got MIME type. These two things are empty. We won't pass it, but we have got the CUID generated. We have got the managed, which is nothing but your creation date and everything ready. So let's just try to push that as well. Okay, let's just stop this execution and try to complete that particular set of code. Okay, now if I would like to insert something into DB, insert a record into DB, which table it will be? It will be your this table where you will add the record, because this does not have a persistency. This table will contain some data. So I'll just copy this and I'll try to connect to this. Okay. Now I might need the same table at different places. So what I'll do is I'll just simply try to connect to it on the top itself. I'll just simply say I'll need this table, but which namespace can give me that? Okay, so I'll just simply go over here and add this BTP Azure as a namespace. Oh, sorry. CDS dot entities, and there is a namespace. So this ultimately connected me to this particular table. After this, we are supposed to create an entry into this particular table, which is nothing but an insert, right? So I'll just simply say, I would like to create something. I'll just say LR, for example, insert something into the attachment table. I can simply pass saying tx.run over here, and I can pass my insert statement this time. We have used select earlier, we can use an insert as well. For me to use tx, a transaction should also be initialized, but we are also going to update something, right? So it means my update will also need the transaction. So let's just initialize the transaction beforehand, before any of the call. Initialize the transaction. Okay, so we have got the transaction. We are going to perform some operation, which is going to be asynchronous. So I'll write await. If I write an await, my function should be over here asynchronous. So this thing got added unnecessarily. I'll just remove this. We don't need it anyway. I'll just simply say async. So there is my asynchronous function this time, which is going to add this. Now, we would like to perform what? We would like to perform an insert operation, right? In order for me to perform an insert operation, I'll just simply say insert and what? Dot operator. Dot will give me an into where I would like to insert. I'll just say the entity name, right? So I'll just say entity. Second thing you are supposed to add is an entry, actual record. Okay. Before that, I would like to specify what all columns I would like to insert into. So I'll just simply say columns. Here you can specify the list of column. Okay, so I'll just simply say ID is one. Another thing that you are supposed to enter the data into is a name of it. Another thing maybe you are also willing to add the data into is maybe we have also got some MIME type. Okay, and maybe a few last thing will be your created at, created by and all, right? So maybe I guess did we have, yeah, we have this open. I'll just copy this from here. Created at. Modify at and modified by. Okay, now we would need some set of data that we are going to insert. So let's just prepare a payload. So we can pass those data with the help of something called dot values, but we would need the data rather than passing them individually. Let's just prepare some payload. I'll just say prepare the payload over here. Here I'll just simply say ls upload. What all things I would need? I would need an ID. Where can I get my ID from? I have generated an ID over here, so I'll just pass this. Okay, what is the other column where I am planning to add the data? Name it is, right? So where can I get my name from? You can get it from req.data. There is something called file name where it was here. This is something which is giving me the name I need. Okay, another thing that we might need is okay, the MIME type of it. Where can I get the MIME type? Again, it's the same thing, MIME type. I think that was the same name over here as well. Yeah, right. After that, we might need something called created at and by. Created at is nothing but a full timestamp. For that, we have a signature called new date, which is nothing but a JavaScript function. You can simply Google how I can get the creation, how I can get the current timestamp in the ISO format. Okay, because system always store the ISO string. Okay, so there is the one which you can get, and you can also get the created by where it is. Sorry. How can I get the how can I get the current user? In ABAP, we used to have sci uname, right? Here we have req.user.id. req.user.id is equivalent to your sci uname. It gives you your username, current username. Currently, we have not authorized, so it will give us anonymous. But the moment we understand the access UA security, it will start giving you your user ID with which you have logged in. Okay, and another, I can say the last one over here is a modified by. I'll just simply say it req.user.id. Okay, after this, we have to pass all this thing. So I'll just simply say ls upload over here dot id, ls upload dot name. next one is MIME type, created at, created by, modified at, and modified by. Okay, we have added all these parameters and now we are ready with the insert operation. This insert operation will insert this record into the DB and creation will be done. Post which the next thing that we'll do definitely is a update of my content into the DB. Okay, update of my content into the Azure. That's the next thing that we will do. Let's see whether this is passing and are we getting the control into this one. Okay. Okay, so let's just see. I'll just put a breakpoint over here and maybe over here as well and here as well. Okay. Okay, so we have got this. We have got an ID. We have got the payload generated. And payload has got the ID and user ID and the timestamp and the name and everything. We would try to insert this into the DB. Okay, it just inserted. Now let's just say LR insert ATT. It just generated LR insert ATT and it just generated the result as well, affected rows, values, and here it has got all this thing that just got inserted. So if you are willing to return those information, you can get it from here as well. Okay. Now, this is something that we are going to return. I'll just execute this. We have now got the update call of it. Okay, and now in this update call, we have got the things that we need. What are the things? What are those things that you would need in order for you to upload the data into your Azure? Okay, so first thing that you would need in order for you to upload the data into Azure is your content over here. So if I just copy this as an expression, this is going to serve the purpose of my content. So I can just keep a note of it saying I can find my content over here. Okay, another thing that you might need is let's just say the file name of it. Okay, let's see where we can get the file name from. Other thing maybe we would need is a type of it, the content type. So I can just simply copy this, paste it over here to see, okay, are we getting the type of the file? Yeah, we are. So I can say type of the file we can get from here. The thing that we are left out with is file name over here. That's something which is still remaining. Okay. Other two things which are there, maybe let's just say the container ID and everything. That's something we can anytime get via my, let's just say, okay, that we can get anytime from my session as well. Okay. Now my file name. As you can see in the create call, right? We were getting the file name in req.data, but in the update, we are not. In the update, we are just getting the ID of it. It means the primary key and the type which we are there to upload. Other than that, I can say the file name is something that you can get always via your, let's just say some sort of a header parameters. Okay, so how we can get that? So if you just go over here in the params, you will not get it, but in the headers. So if you just try to look for headers, in the headers, we would have got something called slug. Okay, so if I just copy this as an expression, as you can see, request.headers.slug. This is something that will give you the file name. Okay, so we have got the things that we need in order for me to upload an attachment into Azure. Because in Azure, whenever I'm uploading an attachment, these are the two things which are going to be some unique ID. I'll generate it on my own. But in order for me to uniquely identify an attachment, once it has been identified, I might also need the file name. I got the file name, I got the type it's going to have, I got the content it's going to have. Maybe I guess that should be sufficient for me to upload an attachment, right? So what I'll do is I'll just try to now enrich my update method over here as well to see whether that particular upload is working. Now, we have got this. Now we would need one more set of handlers to connect to Azure, because till the time we were just working on CAP, we had got the particular package and all, but we never connected to Azure. We never use the SS string via my particular CAP code. Rather, we are just doing the things on and around my SQL only, right? Now, in order for me to do that, let's just try to create some more handlers over here, which will be responsible for that. So let's just say I'll just go over here and I'll just create few more files. I'll just call it as a handlers, for example. The purpose of it would be to handle certain thing. For example, I'll just simply call it as a Azure file handler. I'll just call it as a Azure file handler.js. Earlier, we have worked on Node.js, maybe with functions. Let's just try to work this time with a class. So we are also clear about how we can use whole programming language, Node.js itself. I'll just say class over here, and I would like to go with something called file handler, for example. Okay, we are calling it as a file handler. A class can have what? A method. So for example, I would like few methods for uploading a file. Okay, I would need some method for downloading the file. Download file. So here we don't have, like in ABAP, definition and implementation. The moment we define the method, that will be defined. Okay. And maybe some sort of a deleting a file. Now here we'll natively use the thing which are relevant to Azure only. Okay. Here the purpose was to connect to CAP service. Irrespective of this one, I can consider it as a central one. If I have shared this code with someone who is not having any background of my this application, they can still go ahead and upload the file. That's how generic we are willing to make it. Now, in order for me to upload file, where I am going to upload it? In some sort of a container. So maybe we can define the input parameter we will need. So for example, I'll just need some sort of a container name. Okay. We would need some file name using which I would upload it. So I'll just say IV, for example, actual file name. We would need the user who is uploading it, so that tomorrow, if I would like to use it for some logging purpose, I can use that. We would need the type which we are uploading. So I'll just simply say content type. Maybe let's just say PDF, Excel, whatever it is. And the last but not the least, the actual content. So using this content and content type of file can be recognized uniquely. Who is the user used for logging? Same way, these to persist tomorrow going forward. If I would like to rename the same file name, I can use it. And where on the Azure I'm going to place it. Okay, that's something I can call it as a container name. The only thing that we are left out with is a blob name. We can generate it within over here as well. Okay, so we got this. Afterwards, what we'll need is we are supposed to use this Azure file handler into my handler over here in my controller. So I would need some sort of a I would need some sort of a handler for this. So I'll just simply, like we added a dependency in main file, same way we can do it here as well. I'll just simply say, call it as a Azure file handler. We just say require. Where can we find it? We can find it in some sort of, let's just say, do we have handlers? Okay, handlers will have Azure file handler. We can use it. This Azure file handler is what? It is a class. In order for me to use a method of the class, what I'll need? An object, right? So I'll simply say that I have got this one over here. I would like to create an object of it. So I'll just simply say where maybe an object of it, LO Azure file handler. Okay. And we'll create an instance of it by using a keyword called new. Okay. Like we are also using these days new in our, and I would like to upload the attachment into Azure. Okay, so I'll simply say I would upload, but it could return me some response as well. So I'll just say upload response. And maybe I'll call its method. Okay, I'll just simply say LO, Azure handler, Azure file handler. And what are those methods? Upload file. Okay, it is suggesting me the parameters that I defined over there, right? It says you would need you have to pass something called a container name. I have to pass one container name, an actual file name, a user. So where I can get my container name from. I can generate my container name as a unique ID. Let me just pick this and put this maybe somewhere onto the top here as is itself. So I'm not supposed to use this again and again. Rather, I'll just use a container ID. Okay, I'll just define the same way, but I'll call this time it as a container ID. Okay, let me just call it as a create a container ID. Okay, I'll just call it as a container ID, containers. Okay, what else? It is looking for a file name, or actual file name. How can I get my file name over here? I can say request.header slug. Other thing it is asking for is a user. I'll just simply say req.user.id. Another thing it is asking for is a content type of it. Where can I get the content type? Here it is. What else it is asking? The actual content of it, and I can get the content via the request.data.content. Okay, so I just am triggering this upload file, and once it is processed, I can expect my file also to get uploaded, and then maybe it will just return me the response that I'll use. Now let's just work on the main thing, which is upload file over here. Okay. Now, in order for me to use this, what we would need? We would need some sort of a unique service access, I can say shared access signature URL, because I would like to connect to this. I'll just simply go over here and I'll say that I would like to upload some file. What it has to say. It says that you have to first create a container. How I can create a container? In order for you to create a container, you would need this blob service client over here. Okay. And this blob service client over here, the one which we have defined, what we are doing, we are saying blob service client and get container client, and you are giving this container name. Okay. How this blob service client was initialized? As you can see, we are saying new blob service client. And in this one, we are passing the URL of that particular account and everything, right? So this is the one that we would need. So we would perform few operations, few steps. I'll just simply say blob service client, which will need a URL. Once I have the URL, I'll create a container on top of it. How can I do that? I'll get the handle. I'll get the object of my container client, and I'll just simply say dot create. Okay. The moment I do that, a container will get created. That's a way of creating a container. Okay. Afterwards, once a container has been created, maybe we can just use it to upload a particular file as well. That's the main idea. Okay. Now let's just go over here and try to get the URL which we need. So for example, here, what do we have? We have a blob service URL, blob service SAS URL, you see, because this is the endpoint. This is just a token, but this is a full URL which contains a full path along with its identity, right? So I'll just copy this and I'll say that this is my URL. Okay, I'll just add it over here. Now, first thing we are supposed to do is we are supposed to generate an instance of a container, because within the container I can expect a file to be placed, right? So for me to create a container, I would first need what? As you can see, you would first need a blob service client, correct? So I'll just simply say I would create a blob service client over here. How can I do that? It says that for you to create a blob service client, you would need a dependency of your Azure storage blob. So I'll just simply say const over here. And I would need something from my require Azure storage blob. And what I'll look from that particular one, you see blob service client. This is the one that we are looking for. Okay. So I'll just use this particular blob service client over here in order for me to create my object. Okay, so let me just say new blob service client. What I can pass over here, it says you can pass your full URL over here. So I'll just pass your URL over here. Okay. So it helped me connect to, so let me just give the step name. This is just to connect to service client. This is what we did. Okay, after we did that, another one we would like to have is a create some sort of a container. Now I would like to create some container. I can say get the handle of a container. That's something we will need first. Why I'm saying this? Because that's what this is also saying. It says blob service client dot get container client. Get the handle of it, and then once you have got the handle, which is nothing but a container client, trigger a create on top of it. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just simply say that I would like to create a container client. So I'll just simply say container client over here. And I'll just simply use my object blob service client dot, I'll just say get container client. Okay. And in order for me to use that, I have to pass what is the name of the container you are expecting. So I'll say this is the name of the container I'm expecting. Okay. As you can see here, you would see a variable turning into a gray color the moment you start using that. That's the same thing. Okay. So in case some variables are not being used, you will get an idea of that as well. Now we have to create the container. But let's just say what are the methods we have for that. I'll just simply say I'm going to create a container, but let this also contain the response. So in case there is something in the message, we can have it container client. I'll just say create, but I have one more method, right? Create if not exist. That's more safer. Many a time if you are trying to create a container which was already there and I am trying to push multiple attachment into single, I can use that. I'll just say create if not exist. What it needs? It just needs an option which are question mark. Question mark, it means they're optional. If you would like to pass it, that's okay. If not, that's also fine. So I don't pass any option, but it returns what? It returns a promise, right? It returns a promise. It means I have to wait for the time it get resolved. So I have to write an await over here. Okay, and if I'm writing an await, this particular method that's there should become a async method. Okay, and there is a async method. It means it's also going to return a promise one day. So if it is going to return some promise one day, I have to also wait for this particular operation of upload file in my Azure attachment handler to get also completed. Okay, now I have got the container. Now my next thing is I have to upload an attachment. Upload an attachment into container. So this particular purpose, this particular step resolve our steps saying that in your Azure storage one over here, it will create a container. You will find a container getting created, but after that you have to upload an attachment onto it. Okay, so in this upload attachment into container, what we might need. So let's see how I can upload an attachment. He is going to give me the list. He is going to create a blob data by uploading. So we have got a container name. Okay, this is where we are. Okay, we have got the container name, we have got a handle of it, and now we have to upload a blob, which is nothing but an attachment. How can I upload it? So it says that like you created a container, same way, let's just create a blob. So you will say container client dot get blob client over here. And whatever you get, you will have to perform an upload operation on top of it. So just write dot upload. The moment you say dot upload along with this relevant parameter, this upload will be done. Okay, so let's just go back. Now, I have got an actual file name, right? There are two options. Either in the container where I'm uploading the file, I can use the actual file name as a file name. Another option could be that I might create my own file name. Why is that the case? So consider that there is a file called xyz.pdf. Someone is uploading xyz.pdf. They uploaded it once. Next time they are changing it and uploading that file again. They want both the files to be stored. So if I have the same file name available in the same container, it will either override it or it will give an error. Right, but we don't want it to happen. We would like each of the file to be stored along with its relevant data, because two file can have the same file name, but the content might differ. Okay, so rather what we'll do is we'll generate our own file name as a unique name. Okay, and that's what we can call it as a blob name. So you see over here, we have also considered Azure file ID. So it's going to be a unique ID we will generate rather than what is being uploaded over here. Okay, so let's just say I am going over here. I would need let's just say a unique ID for that. So I'll just simply use this particular constant. We use this particular dependency we have. Okay, and we would generate some sort of a ID for my file. So let's just say where LV dynamic Azure file ID. Okay, and we'll simply say uid.v1. So we just got a unique ID for this. Now we have to create a blob. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll get the handle of blob. Okay, now while doing that, we would ultimately need a blob handle. So I'll just simply say blob handle over here equal to where a blob will be placed within a container. So I'll just simply say container client over here. And like we get a container client, same will this time we'll get a get blob client. And here we'll pass the name of it. What's going to be the name? There is going to be the name, a unique name that we created. Okay. After we have that, now our purpose should be that we are willing to upload this particular file somewhere. Okay. So we will upload this particular file somewhere. And how we can do that? We would say that I would like to upload the file. Okay. Who can upload the file? Using this blob handle, we can. So I'll just simply say blob handle and you see upload. We have got different operation. Either we can upload, either you have to pass the whole body over here. But we are working on cap, which is working on stream kind of a data. You see at the red stream, we passed it as we have done that, what you can do is you can use this method called upload stream, which also returns a promise. It means it should be await. On top of it, you have to pass a readable stream data to it. Okay, so we have to somehow create a readable stream data along with give a buffer size saying that how much data it can buffer at a time. So for example, if you are trying to upload a file worth, let's just say 10 MB, it will try to upload 2 MB, 2 MB, 2 MB, a chunk of 2 MB. So then it is called as a buffer size of 2 MB. At a point in time, how many chunks can be uploaded? So you can get a faster upload. So I can say maximum buffer over here, right? So you can also get the maximum buffer information as well. Okay. So those are the information that you might have to pass. So you can have all this particular information and I'll upload that particular information over here. So I'll just use upload stream over here and I have to pass different thing that I might prepare. So I'll just say await, that's one. Now I have to prepare some readable stream for this, right? Because that's what it says. It needs a readable stream rather than it needs a readable stream rather than actual content, a pass-through content that you are getting. So I have to create some readable stream over here. How I can create that? Let's just see. Okay, now this readable stream that we are talking about over here is nothing but a stream data. So you remember in college when we used to understand a file working mechanism, we used to have some sort of a streaming. Stream as in some readable data are there on which you can read. Whenever we talk about a file are always a readable, file are always a stream kind of a data. You can have a readable and writable stream kind of a data. That's the same thing. Okay, so this particular stream is something that we are supposed to use. So what we'll do is we'll just go over here and we'll install one more thing which we might need for my stream working. Okay, and we'll create, I can say we'll get the readable stream out of it. So I'll just simply say const require stream, okay, over here, and here we'll get the access for my readable stream this time. Now this readable is something that you are going to create an object for. Okay, so what we might need is we might need an object for this particular readable, and that's something you will pass over here. I can say create an instance of a readable stream. Okay, and here we'll simply say a new readable. We created an object for that, but that's empty. I have to push the data into that. Okay, how I can push the data into that? What all thing it needs? Now my readable over here, I can push the data into that in the form of a buffer. Okay, now if you just go over here, you would see that there are certain ways using which you can convert your files into relevant buffer. Okay, as you can see, Node.js, a helper method used to read the Node.js readable stream into a buffer. Okay, so this is ultimately giving you this particular same reusable library that you are using. Okay, you can use this to convert those things into buffer. Okay, so what we might need is you can either, if you would like, you can create a separate class for that, or if you would like, what you can do is you can simply copy this. I'll say there is a function and where it is ending, this is a bracket. Okay, there is a bracket for this, there is a bracket for this. Before that, there is a bracket for this one, and there is a bracket for this one. Okay, maybe there is the one that we can try copying stream to buffer. Okay, so the purpose of this is to ultimately get the stream and convert it into a buffer. So we might need to create some more method over here. What it does is it tries to convert some sort of a data that you are getting over here in the form of a buffer. Okay, and all it will do is it will try to get the chunk out of it. For each of the data that you are getting, it will try to push the content together. Okay, the moment it tries to push the content together, it will ultimately keep on iterating it. And finally, whatever it ultimately gets towards the end, it concat everything into the buffer and will resolve it. Okay, so this is the one that we can plan using. Okay, what did just happen? Unexpected token. Yeah, we don't need a comma over here because that's again a method. Okay, I'll just format this code. And this is the method that we got from the same Azure one. We can use that. So this stream to buffer is something that we might end up using. Okay. Now what we might need is I have to pass my content and I have to convert it into buffer. Okay. We have got the blob handle and now we'll try to convert the input Node.js content into buffer. I'll just say ls, for example, data buffer. I'll just simply say this dot stream to buffer, and what I'll pass my actual content which I would have received in the input, which is nothing but the input content over here. So we got this. The buffer that we got, we are now planning to convert it into a stream. So I'll ultimately push those data readable.push, and ultimately we will convert it into a buffer by using some int conversion. So I'll just say int8 array dot, and we'll pass the data from buffer. So I'll just say buffer dot from. And this particular data ls data buffer over here is nothing but it's in a format of a binary. Okay, so we'll ultimately pass the binary content to it. Okay, now whenever you are doing this, you would see that you might get one error if there is one function if you are not implementing it. This is the read function. You would see there is a by default function you always have to implement when you are working with a stream data, a readable stream. So I just implement that as well. And ultimately I'll just use readable.push, and I have to ensure that my file is complete over here. If you don't push a null, these kind of in C or C++ or Java as well, you will see each stream should end with a null character. That's the reason you are also supposed to push a null. So system knows where to stop reading the content. Okay, so you got the readable stream. Now the other thing you are supposed to pass is the buffer size. Okay, So you might have some buffer size. So for example, I'll say each time I'm saying I'm uploading a 10 MB of file, what all in what chunks my file should be uploaded. Okay, that's called a buffer size. So I'll just simply say I'll just define some upload options. Okay, let's just say I'm defining 4 MB. Okay, and I'll just simply say that each time you are uploading a file, it should get uploaded in the chunk of a 4 MB. Okay, and this is something maybe I can consider it as a my upload option. So I'll just simply say upload options. Let's just say buffer size. And here maybe we'll call it as a 4 MB. And maybe the maximum, how many buffers I am going to allow. Maybe I'll just say maximum buffers, I'll allow it as a 5, for example. Okay. After this, what you will do is we'll just simply say upload options and you will pass the buffer size and you will pass the maximum buffer it should allow. Okay. Now, what you have done is you have used mostly the things other than the thing that you might need in order for you to set up the kind of file. So you have got a service client, you have created a handle. Internally, you created a container for that. Into the container, you created a file for that. You uploaded the content of it as well by converting it into a stream shot of a data. Okay. Now, as we have done that, last thing that we are supposed to pass to my, let's just say, uh, Azure API is what kind of a file you are trying to upload. So as you can see, each of the REST API has got some type. Same way your Azure as well. So you have to set some HTTP headers. Okay, so I'll just simply say set HTTP headers. I'll just simply say blob handler dot set HTTP header. What all things it is expecting? It is expecting a set HTTP header with the form of a blob HTTP header, which will contain your blob content type. So I'll just simply say if I pass this, it will ultimately contain my blob content type. You see over here, it's just started suggesting that. Okay, what is the kind of type I can pass? The one which I received into the input, which says it's an application PDF and so on and so forth, right? Other than that, we never use the actual file name, right? And we never stored the data of which user created it. Likewise, there can be n number of things which are quite private, which you would like to store onto the file for a auditing purpose or for a logging purpose. So what you can do for that, you can use the metadata operation. Okay, so you will generate some metadata. So for example, I'll generate some metadata. Okay, and here you will simply say, I would like to upload some file name. You can name any property you would like. I'll just simply say actual file name. And here you will simply say created by, and I will pass IV, for example, user. Now this metadata that you created, I'll just simply set it into the metadata. I'll just simply say blob handle dot set metadata, and I'll just pass ls metadata over here. Okay. Whatever things that you are just setting over here, these are the things that will ultimately get generated. So let's just see if we have missed out on anything. First thing, we generated this blob service client. The moment I click on this, it doesn't return a promise. It means it's good to be a normal method. If I put cursor on this, it also returns me container client. After getting a container client, I'm creating a container which is return me a promise. So I have written a await on top of it. I have written UUID v1 to get a new container. I'm creating a blob client to upload and file. I'm getting a stream to buffer over here to convert my content into a buffer data. I'm creating a readable content over here. After that, I'm uploading a file which again returns me the promise. So I have to wait for the time it gets completed. After that, I'm setting a metadata for that. Okay, now as you can see, this set metadata also has got return the promise. Okay, so it makes sense for me to write it in the await mode. Set HTTP header also returns me the promise. So it makes sense if I wait for this completion as well. Okay. So I have uploaded all this thing. Afterwards, I'll simply return the file that just got created. So how I can identify a file? I can identify a file with the dynamic file ID I created. I can name it as anything. So I'll just simply say file ID over here is nothing but my dynamic Azure file ID. Okay, so you got a Azure file ID. You will get it in the output of your upload file over here. Okay, and whenever you get that, what you will do is you will simply try to update these things and the container ID that you created into your DB. As simple as that. Okay, because the moment you do that, you will see your database table getting completed. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just simply say update my DB with the required file info. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just simply say constant. Maybe I'll update something file info. Okay, and I would this time use await tx.run, but this time I have used a select, we have used an insert, we have never used an update. We can try using an update this time. Update. This time you have to pass the name of your entity. I'll just simply say attachments is what we are calling it as. Okay, let's just put it together. Okay, and we are trying to set certain properties. So I'll just simply say dot set. Okay, and within this set, you can set the properties you want. So for example, I would like to set the properties called Azure Container ID over here. And where I can get the container ID from, I created it over here. Let's just copy this. Where can I get the file ID? Because we have also got the file ID over here. Okay, I can get it via the ls upload response. And I'll just get it over here. Azure file ID. ls upload response won't have the file ID, Azure file ID. Rather, the property name over here, we have given it as a file ID. Simple. Okay, but will we upload it for everything? No, we'll just say where my ID is equal to what? We have to pass the primary key of it. And that's the one which is the one which we got over here. I'll just say request.data.id. So we perform this operation as well. Thanks to this, what we should be able to view is any attachment to see whether they are getting uploaded or not. Let's see. Let's see the things into action. All the hard work that we did, is it working the way expected? Okay. Okay, let's just try to be a bit optimistic. I'll just simply say CDS watch profile hybrid. Okay, I'll just go over here and I'll just simply say, and I'll just simply click on this post. Let's see what's going on. Something did happen. Okay, something did happen. It says Azure file handler is not a constructor. We are getting an error on Azure attachment handler line number 19, which is Azure attachment handler line number 19 over here. Okay, Azure file handler is not a constructor, which is this one. Why is that the case? Okay, we created this class, but have we exposed this anywhere? No, right? We never exposed this class anywhere. So I have to expose this module.exports equal to this one. Now we see this is now turning into, yeah, this being used as well. Have we restarted? Yeah, it has restarted this one. Okay, now let's just try to search this. It triggered post, but something just failed. What it says is the first argument must be of type string. It's failing on upload file line number 29. Okay, line number 29 over here, which is nothing but this one. The first argument over here, instance of a buffer array must receive an instance of a promise. It received a promise. Okay, why it happened? Why did it happen? Okay, okay, why would it have been, it would have been happen? Maybe the source of it might not have been resolved, right? So we are getting what? We are getting stream to buffer, which is returning a promise. You see over here, and we never wrote an await for that. Okay, now we just changed it again. Let's just take our another shot. Okay, now we see we have got a 201 created success. Okay, so it just generated this file, and now let's just go into Azure Storage Explorer. Let's just try to refresh this. Okay, it just generated 2 because I guess one time it created the thing, but it failed in between. So this time, what is the content it just got uploaded with? I'll just go over here. Okay, yeah, here we see. So this one anyway was failing, but this one got uploaded, and this has got some file over here. Okay, E53, this is the one that just got uploaded. I'll just simply try to view the information. I'll just simply say, can you show me the more information on the properties? As you can see, it says created by anonymous, the file name that we uploaded, my taste PDF. And on top of it, it would have got some content type as well, application PDF. You see over here, application PDF, right? We'll write a download using which this arbitrary name can be converted and download in a nice little file. But for time being, if you would like, you can just simply say download. It will generate a file without, yeah. So here you can simply say, for example, downloads. I'll select this folder. I'll select this. It will generate a random file for me. But the extension won't be there, right? Because for that, we have to write some logic. But for us to check that out, whether my file got uploaded correctly or not, I'll just simply go over here. And there is a particular file. I'll just simply say xyz.pdf. I just say that and try to open this. As you can see, it just opened the file that we have uploaded earlier. So it means via the CAP, we are able to upload the file in a nice structured way that can be used. Going forward, we'll see how we can download it. But the idea is using the third-party API, which was designed for some purpose, we were able to consume and we were able to push the data on an Azure storage. So maybe if you just go over here, here also we should see something. So maybe if I just refresh this, yeah, here we see the same thing got created because there is an Explorer. There is the same view of it. Okay. So using my CAP, I was able to push the data into my Azure Storage Explorer, which may not be that straightforward when you go with an ABAP. Okay. As simple as that. Anyone having any doubt, any questions to know? No? Okay. It seems we are clear then. So maybe I guess in the next session, we'll try to, let's just say, download and delete these operations as well. Post which we'll try to implement some security mechanism, because currently, as you can see, while I upload it, even though I specify my created by, it's saying anonymous, right? But this anonymous should have specified my user ID. So it's quite clear who is doing that upload of the attachment. So there is something we'll also see. Post which will try to connect my on-premise system. We'll try to push the code into Git, and maybe we'll also see how Fiori application can consume a CAP service and can be deployed on a tile, can be made available as a tile on some of the launchpad. These are the things that we have planned. So maybe I guess we'll do it maybe in next year, which is 2024. Maybe I guess these all maybe we had for this year, or maybe I can say this session. We'll see each other maybe in next year. Still the time, maybe I can say Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you, Sumit. And
Okay.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, have a nice year.